Welcome to class PM. The previous class we have seen that groundwater as an important source of water. Now let us see how the depletion of the water table occurs. See, we know that depletion is like the amount getting reduced, right? Deplete is to get reduced, right? Depletion of groundwater. So before I start with the depletion of groundwater, let us recall what we have learned about this groundwater in the previous class. And we have learned that the major source of groundwater is through seepage, right? Unless the process of seepage happens, that is the natural phenomenon which occurs due to the seepage of rainwater into the soil, and at the same time the seepage from ponds, rivers and lakes, you can see that there is recycling of this water table. That means the water table gets, or the water which is present in the water table gets recharged. So that will not let the water table or the groundwater to get depleted. Depleted means to get reduced. So, but as we know that we are into the 21st century, right? We are into 21st century where we have everything what we need. We have seen that as the evolution occurred, there is a rapid industrialization, and we have seen that the economy is also increased, and at the same time every human is provided with livelihood. So when you are provided with livelihood, you are like the population, as according to the, you can say like we had independence in the year 1947. When you compare the population during the period of 1947 to 2019, I think there is a rapid, you can say enormous growth of population. See, due to this enormous growth of population also, there are like certain things like industrialization after independence, and industrialization after independence, and rapid growth in population, and you can say that agricultural activities. So all these have like hindered the recycling or replenishment of water table. So the first factor you need to understand that there are various factors. As long as there is seepage of water, as long as we are drawing the water from the water table, and as long as there is seepage, there will be replenishment. And there are few reasons, as I've told you, due to the rapid industrialization, at the same time agricultural activities, at the same time increasing population, all this may leave an impact or affect the water table. Now let us see what are the major reasons which are depleting the water table. First is increasing population, then increasing industries, at the same time agricultural activities. So when we talk about what are the major causes or reasons behind the depletion of groundwater, see, as I've told you, after our independence, our country has evolved to be the foremost country in science and technology, right? We can say that improvised science and technology is a kind of boon to us. At the same time, unknowingly we are also depleting the natural resources due to our human activities. Like these are all human activities which are reducing the water which is present in the ground level, and one fine day there may be a situation where you may not find any water which is present in the water table, and this will definitely lead to you can say water scarcity, right? Now let us see what are the different causes or reasons for the depletion of groundwater. So increasing population, increasing industries and agricultural activities. As I've told you, increasing population. Why the population has to be increased, right? When you compare the population according to the census, when you compare the population 10 years ago, let us not go to 1947 when we had our independence. So just let us take 5 years ago or 10 years ago, where we have seen that comparatively the population has increased right from 2009 to 2019. Right, so this 2019 year has a lot of population where the people need to find shelter for themselves, right? The competition between the people has increased for shelter, and when this has been increased, what actually we people are doing? We are trying to cut down the trees, we are trying to construct buildings in the open spaces like playgrounds, and you can say open spaces like parks. Nowadays we seldom find parks or playgrounds, right? In our olden days, every school was provided with a huge playground. But nowadays you see that there are no playgrounds in the schools at all. Only the children are supposed to play in the indoor stadiums, or you can say only indoor games are allowed to play. That is because lack of availability of the land. And why is this done? Why is this happening? Why is the scarcity of land is seen? That is because of the rapid increase in the human population. So to accommodate and to provide shelter to everyone, what are we doing? We are just cutting down the trees and we are trying to occupy the open spaces and construct houses for us. When we are trying to do all this, see, in the very beginning of the chapter we have seen an activity where we try to pour water onto a floor and at the same time pour water onto a lawn. So when you pour water onto the floor, you have seen that there is no seepage. The water is not being absorbed into the floor, but when you have started pouring water onto the surface of the lawn, you have seen the water gets seeped into the lawn, right? So now when there is lot of population and when government or people started constructing houses everywhere without leaving the soil, right? So is there any possibility of the rainwater to get seeped into the water table? Do you think the water gets seeped into the underground? No. See, everywhere it is building, everywhere it is road. Where is the soil then? See, unless until there is no soil, you cannot expect the water table to get recharged, right? The source of water table is rainwater. The seepage of rainwater only will help it to get recharged. So when you are disconnecting the channel itself, right? When you are disconnecting the connection itself, do you think that the water table gets recharged? No. See, it's a common thing. When you plug in your plugs into the socket to recharge your battery, and when you cut one of the wire out of it, do you think that the battery gets recharged? Obviously not. The battery doesn't get recharged, right? In the same way, when even though you have lot of land and you have constructed it with all through the floor without leaving the soil at all, do you think the rainwater gets seeped? Obviously not. So this is one of the cause due to the rapid increase in the population has led to the depletion of groundwater. So you can see that huge amount of water can be seeped only into the soil but not onto the floor. See, when you just take a glass of water and right now you take a glass of water and pour it onto the floor in your room, and what do you observe? You just observe that the water stays there itself, or if it is a low-lying place, it tries to flow as it has a property of fluidity, right? It tries to flow, but you don't see that the water gets seeped or percolated into the floor. So that is the reason this is one of the major cause for depletion of groundwater. And the other thing what we are observing is there is an increase in the usage of groundwater and the decrease in the recycling of groundwater, right? We are consuming more of groundwater and we are not allowing the water to get seeped into the soil. See, when the level, there should be always a balance, right? When you're using up the water, you also have to balance. See, you have to balance everything in your life, right? In the same way, the groundwater need to be balanced, right? When you're using a certain amount of water in the ground, you should also allow the water to get seeped into the soil. Only then you can expect the groundwater to persist for years, right? If you don't do this, you cannot find groundwater anymore. And in fact, there are many cities almost where the groundwater is almost gone down the margin. That is, you can say that it is below the expected level. It is almost alarming level, right? Alarming level. That means they need to be very careful, and I think they have to take initiatives to improvise the groundwater levels. Then the next factor is increasing industries. Yes, as discussed, see, all these are interrelated. When population has increased, automatically the industrialization also has to take place, because it is not only the shelter needed for every person, but they also need livelihood. From where do they get the livelihood? Where do they earn money? From the industries or factories. You see, most of the people, even your parents, may be working in some of the industry or a firm or a factory or somewhere, or few of them may be having business. So for this, why are they doing all these things? They do all these things so that they can earn their livelihood. So these are again interrelated. So increase in population has ultimately led to increase in the industries. So we know that the industries which are located either say far away from our places or somewhere in our city, we see that these industries manufacture different products. We use different products every day, right from the day we begin, like with your paste and brush, right, until the end of the day, say like your blankets and everything, right? So every product need to be manufactured by the industries. So when these industries try to manufacture various products, somewhere or the other they have to use the water. And when they're using up the water which is present, right, and if the water is not been recycled, So, do you think that the groundwater level remains the same? Obviously not. This is also another factor which is almost like depleting the groundwater source, and from the groundwater. And most of the industries, they depend upon the groundwater for their industrial activities. So when they are digging out the water from the ground, and they're using it for the industrial purpose for various activities, say like manufacturing of various goods, do you think the water remains the same, or the water level remains the same? No. See, you have constructed houses by clearing the lands. At the same time, you are also constructing industries, clearing the lands. Now, where is the place for the water to get seeped in? Right? There is no place left, and I think hardly we have spaces. Now, you just go out and look throughout your window, or just go out and stand in your balcony and observe like how much of soil is present around in your street, and so that the water can get seeped into the soil, so that your groundwater level can be still maintained. See, I think it would alarm you, because nowadays every street is provided with good roads, and I don't think that we have any more soil left to see because of this rapid industrialization and population. So the next concern, or the next cause which is depleting the groundwater, is agricultural activities. Now you might have a question, why do agricultural activities actually disturb the water table, right? Yes, see, again these two are interrelated to this. Again, these two are interrelated to the next factor. How come? Right? When population has increased, right? Obviously, competition for the food also will be increased. So the farmers have to produce a large amount of productivity, so that they can provide food for everyone, right? And for this, what do? They try to dwell the waters from the water table or groundwater in the form of canals and tubes, and we are trying to take up the water which is present in the ground. When there is no rain to get seeped into the groundwater, do you think that this water table will retain the water content or water level in its underground? Obviously not. So this is also one of the, you can see that this agricultural activities can also you can say are one of the factors for which enhance the depletion of groundwater. I'll tell you. See, we know that most of our farmers in India depend upon the rain for their agriculture, right? When there is a place, say like there are few places in our country where there is erratic rainfall, say like almost they don't have rainfall regularly. So how do they cultivate their lands? Definitely they depend upon the groundwater. They try to dwell the groundwater, dig the groundwater, and make it available for the agricultural activities in the form of canals or tubes or whatever. So when you are using up this, do you think that they'll be left with any more water in the ground? Obviously not. And due to increase in the population in that particular place, will definitely pressurize farmers to use up the groundwater to meet up day-to-day activity. So these are the major causes which are actually, you can say these are the root causes which are depleting the water table, So ultimately these three factors will result in the depletion of water table. Now, when you talk about the distribution of water, we know that India is a place where we don't have the same climatic conditions everywhere, right? You have studied all this about climatic conditions in the adaptations lesson. In the same, as I've told you, there are few places which are rich in rainfall. That means they receive rainfall very often. There are few places which receive a moderate rainfall, and there are few places in our country which receive scanty rainfall. You can say almost scanty means almost no rainfall in few places. So in such cases, you see that the places which are rich with rainfall definitely will be flooded away, right? See, there are coastal areas which very often or regularly receive rain during monsoon, due to which sometimes these monsoons may turn into what I say like floods, right? And there are few places which hardly or seldom receive rainfall. In such cases, you see that the condition leads to drought, right, where the moisture which is present in the soil gets depleted, and there is no moisture present in the soil which would not support the plantation. And definitely when there is no plantation, there is no cultivation taken up by any of the farmers, which ultimately will lead to drought condition and famine in that particular place. That is, you'll have a shortage of food and water for a long period, and that is because of less availability of water. And sometimes you see this often happens in various places. So what is to be done? What is to be done? Yes, every person should, or every citizen should take up the responsibility to manage the level or usage of water. So let us talk about water management. So when you talk about water management, so what is water management? In class 6 we have studied like the water is supplied to houses and factories, industries, hospitals and everywhere through taps, and the government, the civic department which is present, they build or construct the tanks and they supply the water through the taps, and we know that we have well planned pipe system through which the water is sent to different places in the cities, like where you can see the water is not wasted over, but during monsoon usually we see that due to heavy rain sometimes there is a leakage in the pipeline which has been sent to the houses or some other household activities or domestic activities, and during that time if we don't take initiative to block that leakage, definitely there would be a great loss of water, and we have to see that we have to prevent the wastage of water by mending the leakage immediately, and not only this leakage, but we have to put an habit of having a water management at home every day. See, we do need water for several activities every day, like bathing, cooking, shaving, washing clothes and everything, right? We need to minimize the use of water for various purposes. Knowingly or unknowingly, we do waste a lot of water for many of these activities in our daily life. At the same time, we see that most of us use water as if we don't require water for any further, right? Please stop using water as if you don't require water in future. Please ensure that the water is to be protected, because this is the source of living, right? You cannot recycle the water if you don't preserve it, right? So, and we have seen that most of the times there are many places where there is heavy rainfall, and what do people do there? They don't do anything. They just see that the rainwater is flown away and gets finally mixed up into the rivers or lakes or ponds. So instead of that, we can have a water harvesting plant or rainwater harvesting plant, which will definitely help you to have water for your future generations. In many places in our India, you can say that there is a practice in olden days, especially in olden days, there is a practice of boweries. Okay, what are these boweries? These boweries are dug in every home so that they can have a source of water, and whenever there is a rainfall, the boweries gets filled up, and these boweries are used as a source of water in many of the houses in olden days. But as the days passed, we have seen that these boweries are used to fill the pit. It is used as a pit to fill all your waste. We are dumping all the waste into the pits. So this usage of this boweries also has been reduced, and I think when there is a scanty rainfall, people in those places can use up these boweries. That means they can store the water whenever there is a rainfall in the boweries and can use it, and farmer can use it. You see that as I've told you, agricultural practices also need a lot of water. And the best way of conserving water during agricultural activities is to have drip irrigation. You might have heard about drip irrigation. This is actually a modern technology which has been introduced nowadays to save water. They have pipelines throughout the crop field. At equidistances, you find that the pipelines are provided with small holes, and the water flows through these holes and it will seep into the soil without any wastage. Okay, this is a new technique of using water or delivering water into the farms. So by using these things, by doing these small little things which we can do, like closing the tap immediately after the usage and getting the leakage tap mended, at the same time conserving the water by minimizing the use of water for various household activities, and instead of like washing the floor, you can mop the floor, right? You can mop the floor, and you can use the water which has been mopped to plant your trees or in your garden, water your plants in your garden. You can use the water which is used for mopping, and you can use this water which is mopped for watering your plants in the garden. At the same time, you can do many things. You can use the water instead of wasting it in many ways. So the clever usage of water will help you to conserve the water for future generations. So we all the time have to take an initiative, or we all the time have to think of like how to use the water in a minimized way. If not, we have to suffer. Not only we, our future generations also have to look for the water. And what are the habits which you can actually develop? You can see the water which runs out of your washing machines, you can collect it into the buckets from the drain pipe which comes out. You can collect it into the bucket and you can just use it to water your plants, right? You can wet the soil in your garden. Instead of putting a pipe into your lawn and using it, you can use all these things, right? So this is the role you can play to conserve water. At the same time, you see that when there is a scarcity of water, not only human beings suffer, even plants also suffer. You see that the plants wilt down. Wilt means they droop down the leaves like this, as if they have nothing to do with the atmosphere, right? So this wilting of leaves is because of drying up of the surface of the leaf due to lack of water. And when there is lack of water, you see that the surface of the leaf get dried up. And when the leaf surface get dried up, you know that the pigment, green pigment which is present, will not function properly. It will not be able to synthesize the food. And when there is no synthesis of food happening, definitely the plant will not produce glucose in its body, and ultimately it will lead to the death of the plant. In case if this happens for a longer period, you see that all the plants which are present in your surroundings die, and ultimately that will result in shortage of food for the people living in particular community. So we have to see that we have to ensure that we need to have a green planet with water, with plants. So what you have to do is conserve water so that we can have plants. And imagine in modern era, life without a day without oxygen, without plant, without water will definitely end up our life. So conserve water and ensure that the water is not wasted. As I've been telling you, you can actually do this. It is not only government has to take the initiative to construct these water harvesting projects. Even there is a place in Rajasthan. Rajasthan is usually hot and dry place, right? So what they have done is they have taken it as a challenge and they started constructing some water harvesting dams where they can collect the water whenever there is a rain. They have like revived 5 dried up rivers. That means they have revived the dried up rivers, and of the rivers are with plenty of water, where they are using this water for constructing water harvesting structures. They have revived up the 5 rivers where they have stored the water for various activities, and this is done by constructing rainwater harvesting systems. So please, in your place also, just you, if being a citizen of our country, you can also take an initiative. It is not only the government always has to take up the initiative. In your place, you people can gather, take an initiative. If you find that your place receives a good amount of rainfall, and if you are finding that you are having a scarcity of water during summers, you can construct rainwater harvesting plants in your places so that your community or your street or your lane or your colony can be well equipped with water, so that you will not have scarcity ever.